and thank you for tuning in to the seventh episode of the Tell Your Story podcast. My name is Q, and today's guest is Alex Ware, who is an who is an autism acceptance advocate, who will be sharing his story. And the goal of the Tell Your Story podcast, as initially mentioned in previous, is to share stories on sexual assault, domestic violence, and violence and more. More being the topic that we're going to discuss, which is autism acceptance, and maybe a little bit of sexual assault. We don't, we'll see, and it's depending on him sharing his own story of it, and stuff. So, with that said, Alex, introduce the viewers and listeners to your story, and what you have been doing.
Yeah, so my name's Alex. I'm a fourth-year student at Eastern Michigan, going into elementary education. I firmly believe that one of the most important teachers you can have is a neurodiverse one, someone who thinks much more differently than the normal population. I believe that's essential because it opens up the students for new learning opportunities and new thinking strategies, new learning strategies. So I'm a huge advocate for neurodiverse teachers as well as specifically as teachers on the spectrum.
Mm.
And a little bit more about me. I don't have many friends, but I have really good ones. And really that's all you need. I know society today tells you that you need a lot of friends. But really I just go back to the core roots of how humanity has gotten this far, and just that you don't need a lot of them. You just need ones who are there for you and will protect you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Having really good core friends is definitely important. With that said, what made you be an advocate for autism acceptance, your journey, and your own experience, and what that was like?
Well, I was diagnosed about 7 years before I started doing this actively. I was in 2012. It was in 2012 when I was diagnosed, and I really didn't think much of it through my entire life until I got to college.
Mm-hmm.
And I met like so many more people on the spectrum, and it opened my eyes just to how common it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that just how diverse it was as well, because I didn't know anybody who had autism in middle school and high school. And one day I was in class with one of my friends who had autism, and he had his abnormal behaviors, I had mine. And I noticed that people treating us poorly in high school, that kind of continued in college.
Mm-hmm.
And it unfortunately continued a lot more from my friend than it did for me. So I got pissed off about that. And I sent a post on You Engage. I was like, hey, listen, if you make fun of people with things that they can't control, I mean, I can't say the exact word I put, but you're a fool.
Mm-hmm.
That you are not very intelligent for doing that, for making fun of a condition with that most people don't even want to have, really. They didn't choose it. They deal with it, and you're making fun of them for it, and that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized just how important the advocacy of this condition was, because people really needed to understand what our brains were like.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly, from my experience in the classroom, they didn't. And about a year ago, I created my YouTube channel, which is Alex's Autism Acceptance channel, which basically covers all aspects of it. Anything from STEMming to workforce experience to how people handle punishment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been just so intriguing, just increasing they basically opening the curtain on so many things for not only my audience but also myself. Like I learn something new every single day about this condition because of like research and just being interested in it.
Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. With that, how was it being able to being able to create a space and a community surrounding just more education on autism, what it's like, also battling like the unemployment and trying to get more people employed and stuff like that. Like how was that in specific, especially starting your own YouTube channel and seeing just sort of like a lot of things happening as you kept on doing more videos and episodes and being more of an advocate over time.
Yeah. Well, the growth has been pretty spectacular, really. I think there are a lot of people who did deep down want to hear about it, but there just wasn't many resources available for them. So to me, I realized that going in. So really creating that channel was quite easy. And I got this huge motivation boost right off the bat. And to be honest, it really hasn't gone away since. Because the thing about this condition, there's so much to talk about. I could be doing this for like a decade. And I think it's very important for people who want the resources to be able to have them. And the most important resource, in my opinion, is someone talking about what it's like, like how the day-to-day experience is. I don't think you can learn enough from doctors as you can from an autistic person about what it is.
So just to give the viewers more specifics on what autism is and what it's like, can you give more like details into what it's like, especially after you got your diagnosis back in 2012 and how you were able to deal with it too over time?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I instantly became a lot more clear on the issues that were happening because I was trying to like fit in with all my classmates. And I wasn't, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on with that? Am I an alien or something? And because I didn't think anything was different about me. And to be frank, I had no reason to, but it was just the classmates were treating me so much differently. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but like in those young ages when you really want to be like everyone else, it's just like, it was traumatizing. It really was. And so when I got that diagnosis and my mom started like researching everything, letting me know what was going on, I was like, oh, okay. That clears a lot up. And since then, I've been able to notice those differences that autism causes that I didn't before my diagnosis. So for example, my ability to, like my troubles with having eye contact, I thought that was a totally normal thing. And turns out it's not. So just being able to be aware of that and letting people know that, hey, something's different. Here's what you need to know. And here's why I bring different gifts to the table. That's very important to have an autism diagnosis for that.
So have you been getting a lot more people reaching out to you then, asking you more questions, sending you more resources and stuff like that?
Well, to be frank, I reach out to a lot of people, and that's how I'm able to reach out, if that makes sense. So for example, I had an interview with a YouTuber with 20,000 subscribers, and it was like the interview that I always do, like the speech and all that, and I was able to gain like 50 subscribers from that, with people who were really interested because I was just like being real, and I think putting yourself out there just opens the door to so many opportunities, because when you don't put yourself out there, the answer is always going to be no. Like, is something going to happen? The answer is going to be no if you don't put something out there. But if you do put yourself out there, there's also that yes option that's added to it. So is this interview, is this TED Talk going to happen? Yes or no? If you don't go for it, it's always going to be no. I like what Magic Johnson always said. Well, maybe it wasn't Magic Johnson, but he says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if I don't go for it, the answer is never going to be revealed,
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really awesome. Um, so with that, I mean, like, were you able to see more doors opening for you too then, especially being able to, being a teacher, or trying to be a teacher,
Mhm.
and really wanting to provide more of a diverse setting for children too, especially those who are probably on the autism spectrum and stuff like that. What was that like, seeing just many doors slowly starting to open too as you were putting yourself out there and sharing your story?
Yeah, it was a bit overwhelming because the thing about autism, we experience sensory overload quite easily,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that can have any trigger, and it can be no trigger at all. It can just be random.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to success, that's something that a lot of autistic people get really freaked out about, because it's like there's so many opportunities, and we just like to choose one path. Generally,
Mm-hmm.
we don't like to have a lot of multiple options, because then we have to think so much more, and then the pros and cons get all confused, and we just freak out about that. So I was a bit nervous about it, at first, but as I see these doors opening, and like as I go through it day to day, it's not scary. It's quite inspirational that I'm able to get the word out there. So I think so many successes are based on overcoming that initial fear, and people with autism have that initial fear for so many things, and we have to let that go, in order to really get the word out there, and if we really want to,
Mm-hmm.
because so many things come from that, and really I wouldn't have this whole transition any other way. I wouldn't
Mm.
have this process any other way.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Especially it definitely comes to mind when it's it's going to be hard doing what you love, because if we decide to do what's meaningful for us, it's going to be hard. It's going to take a lot. It's going to push us to our very best, but also going to bring us to our very worst too. um
Right. Yeah.
especially if it's just like, oh man, I'm experiencing this all for the first time and stuff like that, you know.
Well, that's a common theme for pretty much every human. Like if you get these high goals and you
Hmm.
get them, the wins are really high. But
Hmm.
when you don't get them, the wins are like the losses are really bad.
Hmm.
So I think that affects people's ability to take risks, and like risk that fear of failure. And I believe that's enhanced for a lot of people on the spectrum, just because of how the brain works. Like we are
Hmm.
wired to have more difficulty taking challenges.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
definitely. With that, was it initially hard for you to find at least good friends for you that accept you for you, and was able to be a little bit more understanding, or was it really difficult? How was it trying to find a community for yourself in person, you know?
well, when I was doing that mentality where I was like, I gotta have a lot of friends. This was in middle school. This is in elementary and middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, it was extremely difficult because I couldn't find a lot of friends. But I realized that that wasn't the goal in high school. I realized that wasn't what I was supposed to be living for. And I had realized that I had established those really good relationships in the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
One of my closest friends today, like I'm almost 22, and I met her when she was 5.
Oh
Like
wow.
we've been friends for 17 years, and that's because she gets me and I get her. I mean, she's not on the spectrum, but she is neurodiverse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I realized I had completed that goal from the beginning, and that made me a lot happier, because I think the happiest day of a lot of people's lives is when they realize they can cut out so much unnecessary things. And one of those unnecessary things is friends who aren't really there for you. Once you cut those out, you are a free man.
Yeah, definitely. And, even just the word friends is sort of like more too, because, everyone has their own definition of friends or have a general idea of what friends are. But, we typically sort of fall short of what that even looks like, or even how to even be a friend to ourselves, so to speak, too, because we also deal with a lot, again, of these substances and stuff like that too, especially in the culture that we're in, especially with digital media, with like digital tech and being online
Yeah.
and stuff, and having everything sort of being put up on like in front of so many people's screens of like looks, certain like personalities, being an influencer and stuff like that as well.
Right. And I will say that people on the spectrum are sort of immune to that in some sense. Like they're immune to that peer pressure that you have to be with a certain personality. That being said, it is hard to like see other people just like fall into that and just be brainwashed by that. It's sad to see, and unfortunately, the responsibility of getting out of that funk and like kind of being enlightened with that stuff, it really is on them. And to me, it was quite easy, but I know for a lot of people, it's really hard to do that. So I believe that if people are like in their delusions and they think that how they're living is a really good life and they're really happy, I say let them live their lives that way. It's their life, not mine. Now that being said, if people want to live in a way that I live and like my mentality, and they want to sort of get out of that social media funk, they come to me, and I can give them the tools they need to break out of that.
Awesome.
But they need to be the ones to take that first step.
And so, have you seen people sort of reaching out to you about how to do that, especially having your own online space? Or
sadly, I haven't. For like the people who I'm friends with already have that enlightenment, and that kind of like breakthrough from that stress. Because when you break through, you realize how stressed out you were about like following that. And I really hope that people are going to be able, well, and again, like there are so many people who have broken free of this. So I trust that a lot of people who were in that, when they met me, were able to get that help from other people because they took that steps, and the other person was like, oh yeah, I'll help you out, whatever you need. And I have faith that a lot of people have been rescued from that, basically.
For sure. So with that, how was it like then, when COVID happened and all the shutdowns and stuff like that too? Like, what was your sort of like switch when everything sort of happened, and you're more your role as an advocate for autism acceptance?
Yeah. Well, the pandemic, I was obviously a bit frightened of that at first. And I still am. Like I do everything in order to prevent the spread of this. That being said, socialize, I wasn't really affected by it because people were getting really sad that they couldn't go to baseball games, couldn't go to concerts, couldn't like go with friends to get a slice of pizza. And I was like, I don't really do that in the first place. So socially speaking, that didn't really affect me. I mean, obviously I was devastated about like all the sickness and death that is happening, and I'm so glad that we're getting out of that now. But when it comes to my social interaction, it pretty much has stayed the same. Now, as to how that developed into my autism advocacy, I actually started my channel during the pandemic
Mm,
because I had really cared about that before. But in August, I was like, okay, I need to talk about this. I need a platform to talk about this. And the pandemic was a perfect opportunity for me to do that because I was like, okay, I'm a college student. I really want to talk about this, but I don't know that I'll have time to do that.
mm-hmm.
And then the school load just like went down a lot. And so I was able to focus on that. And I was able to say, yeah, you know, let's do this. Because right now I have time for this. And maybe when school starts up, I won't have time. And then a funny thing happened. I realized I did have time
Mm-hmm.
and that it was just an illusion that I would have been too busy. But
Mm,
I'm fully capable now. I realize I'm fully capable of doing both school and this channel and this Instagram and like these interviews and all that. I'm able to do that as well
mm.
as do everything I need to do.
Wow, wow. I mean, just you just hearing that mentality of like, oh man, I realized the illusion of like, oh, I really have a lot of time and
Mhm.
stuff like that, especially as a college student too, because like, I'm taking a break and planning to come back, as I said,
Right.
next winter and semester and stuff. But yeah, like when you're a college student, like it's a time management sort of deal, especially like when you first starting out and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
But
It, the balance of time has to be impeccable,
mhm.
basically, in order to succeed. And luckily, with 3 years of experience, I managed to do that. Now, the question is, would I have been able to start this channel freshman or sophomore year? And I really don't think so. I think I needed a lot of time in order to get down that time management.
Mm,
Um, so yeah.
nice, nice. So, with everything said, so what are you doing now? What do you plan to do in the future? Especially with everything that's going on, especially with like things that are going on Eastern's campus and stuff like that too.
Right.
How you're gonna place yourself within the community. What where you're trying to go with expanding your outreach and things like that, and how how much you're gonna devote your time to being an advocate for autism acceptance.
Yeah. Um, Well, I would say for now, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing because it seems to be working. It seems to be reaching people. Like I make an Instagram post every day. Every Monday, I upload a 10-minute video on YouTube. Every Thursday, I go live for 30 minutes talking about certain subjects. So I think my advocacy is going quite well. And really, when I get an idea in order to help raise awareness for more awareness for this community, I do it. So if any ideas are going to come up, then yeah, I'm on board to add to that.
Awesome, awesome. With that, like I imagine you sounds like you wear a lot of hats, similar, similar to me.
Well,
So
I
oh sorry.
I don't think I do wear a lot of hats. I it's really exhausting for me to put on multiple faces.
Mm,
Um, like this, like how I'm talking to you now is pretty much how I am with everything, like
mm,
my job, my school, my relationship with friends. I'm just kind of not really monotone, but monofacial, I guess.
mm-hmm.
Like this is how I talk. This is how I advocate. This is how I joke around. It's like, yeah. Um, that would be my answer to that. I don't think I wear a lot of hats personally.
Mm, for sure, for sure. Um, with that, like, so you so you plan on doing this for a decade then?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, there's thousands of videos I could do about this.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Are you like learning, like, is there like more and updated information that's going on that's being put out there to them? And then if so, like, where can people like find this sort of information on autism and stuff like that too, and make sure that also like the information that they're getting is also factual too.
Right. Well, unfortunately, some of the developments of autism, like when I see in the news, it's just bad stories about abuse and all that. So I don't really find a lot of good new news, like new breakthroughs. However, I have noticed some very interesting facts coming up, such as about how autism affects ethnicity. Like there are a lot of different percentages of autism depending on race, and that's very interesting. And also, I've learned that there is a much higher autistic population in prison than there is in the general population. And that's quite concerning. And I actually did a YouTube video about that about 3 weeks ago, like breaking down a whole article exposing the prison system about discrimination with autistic prisoners. And I put a lot of resources in there that people can click on and they can help. And that's kind of my goal. Like with these informational videos, I post the articles to what I read, so that people know that it's legit, and I'm just like not spewing like just how I feel. It's like genuine articles. So if you go to my YouTube channel and you type in and you watch like my informational videos, all the articles are up there that explain what's going on with this condition and like what you can do.
Awesome, for sure. Yeah. So with those that are at least viewing this podcast, I'll make sure to put a link in the description to Alex's YouTube channel, so you guys can go check it out.
And I have Instagram too, but it's just more of like a feel good thing. I post positive vibes on there, and the YouTube channel is more informational.
For sure. Yeah. So you hear that, folks? So I'll make sure to put both the YouTube and the Instagram into the YouTube descriptions down below. So whenever you have the chance to, after you get done viewing this video, to go check out the link, check out his channel, give him a like and subscribe too, because he's a pretty awesome dude. Yeah, no problem. So with that, I know that we talked a little bit and mentioned about sexual assault and stuff like that. So what is your relation to that then? Is it what and what you're comfortable with sharing about that and stuff?
Well, I don't have any experience of sexual assault, but I do have a lot of sort of emotional and mental abuse that I've unfortunately gone through. And I have to say it has gotten a lot better as the research of autism has progressed, and more is coming out about like, hey, these people really can't control this. Stop being an asshole. So it's been slowly progressing, and I think this has gotten better. I think this is just like any other condition, you know. Like people start off just like really ignorant about this, and as information progresses, people who are willing to learn become more and more accepting, and the abuse rates and the self-harm rates go down less and less. And I believe we're going to look back at this condition in 50 years and we're going to say, oh my gosh, we didn't know anything about this, you know, because the progression of the knowledge of this is progressive. It keeps going. It's not going to stop. And really, I think that's the case with pretty much everything that people who have faced discrimination have gone through. So, for example, before the Civil Rights Movement, we looked at the times before that. During the Civil Rights Movement, they looked at the times before that and said, oh my goodness, this was so messed up. But then we looked at, we look today at the Civil Rights Movement and we say, okay, this could have been worked on, this could have been worked on. So
Mhm.
as we get into the future, we constantly see room for improvement.
Mhm.
And I don't hold any judgment about people who didn't know anything about this condition in the 80s, because I mean,
Mhm.
really, how could they? I believe, but I believe the more knowledge this progresses in, the less excuse they have for ignorance of this condition.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I'm sorry for like asking that question too. I know like in the past episodes it has been about sexual assault and stuff like that too. So doing this interview is definitely like a like curve around, but it's definitely like a definitely a right turn, but it's definitely a really like love this right turn, so to speak.
What was that?
I really love this right turn, so to speak. I don't know the proper term phrase of just like covering more topics, such as like
Right.
autism and stuff
Yeah.
like that too.
And yeah, I have all the sympathy and compassion in the world for those survivors. I like I personally believe that only 4 crimes are worthy of the death penalty, and
Hmm.
sexual assault is one of them. It really
Hmm.
is. Um, so really, they deserve all the resources that they need.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And even then, like and this is something that I personally believe in. Like, and I think a lot of people would agree. Like, it costs $0 to be a decent person.
Mhm.
Like,
Oh, yeah. You know, this world this world is not in a very good position right now when it comes to sympathy and understanding. I think like during the pandemic at the beginning stages, there were signs of that short term.
hmm.
Now that things are sort of getting back to normal, we've lost that. We really have.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm a Christian, and I believe that all of this suffering and all of this understanding, it was caused by original sin. And in an ideal world, we would look at different forms of thinking and think, oh my goodness, that's amazing. I really want to learn more. This is so cool that this person has these different experiences.
Hmm.
But it's not an ideal world. It's so far from an ideal world. And there are always going to be people, and this is important, that I needed to realize when I started my channel. I said, hey, I'm going to influence a lot of people. I'm going to change a lot of people's minds. But there are going to be some people who watch this and still are cold hearted. And there's nothing I'm able to do about that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and it definitely is about like sort of like carving out our own place in the world too, of like positivity and acceptance and understanding and stuff like that too. Because
I
what I wrote.
actually
Hmm?
have a wristband on right now. Let me pull it off. I've been wearing
Oh,
this.
awesome.
I've been wearing this ever since I got it at Eagle Fest. It's respect, inclusion, acceptance, and
Yep.
that's all you need to. That's all you need to do in order to have a good life. I really believe that.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely just something just simple and just like even those two things are just like enough to make people feel they belonged and like something more than just like a group of friends. Like, it's about wanting to be a part of a community, like a family, of people and that want to do good, that want to help others, especially in this day and age where we haven't done that,
Right.
at least for long stretches of time too. We've seen pockets of it for sure, but never really long that's consistent with that. And, it's not overshadowing all the bad, but it's really trying to prove or see the point of like my hope in us as like a people, as humans, being able to be the best that we can
Yeah, and I will say that I firmly believe that people who like only interact positively with people who are exactly like them, I believe they're miserable people deep down. I really do, because that shows that they are very insecure about themselves.
Mhm.
Because if they see something different, they think, oh, this person's is different. How does he have the same success? And that really shows deep insecurity right there.
Yeah, definitely. And it shouldn't be that. It's like, oh man, that person is doing an awesome thing, and despite what he has and what he's going through and stuff, and he's succeeding and showing like you can do it, you
Yeah.
can be successful, like no matter what a affliction like hinders you or what have you, like you are an inspiration to so many people at the end of the day, especially they're able
And,
to see it.
yeah, and that's what I want to like teach my students because of that. Statistically, 86% of autistic adults are unemployed.
Mm,
And that's a number that needs to change. But at the same time, I want to teach them like the success stories of people who were able to make it.
mhm,
And I want to say, this is what you can do despite your circumstances, like despite the world inherently being against you, because it is.
mhm.
Um, you can do this. So
Yeah, awesome.
yeah, and it's absolutely nothing against neurotypical teachers. I think they are incredible,
Mhm,
but they aren't able to experience the well, I don't want to say like discrimination or anything, but
mhm,
they aren't able to experience the extra hardships
mhm,
of sort of like having a different brain than most of society,
mhm,
um, and having to fight through that is so hard.
mhm,
And like people who do that, I find to be very inspiring. Um,
mhm.
and I hope to share my tips and tricks to the rest of my to like the people going into higher grades.
Awesome. So with that, this will be the last question before we end. So, what tips or advice would you have then, since you're speaking of tips, for like people, especially those that are interested in learning more about autism and being an acceptance advocate? What are your advice for those that do have autism and are going through like extra hardships and stuff like that, or those that even want to understand, like what would be your advice and tips for them, for all of them?
The first thing I would say to be is take your time in this process. I mean, the road to acceptance is a very long journey for people who are newly diagnosed. It takes years.
Mm-hmm.
I got diagnosed at 12 and I was 18 before I was totally cool with it. Like
Mm-hmm.
even on my good days, it took me 6 years until I was okay with it on my good days. So, you know, people on the spectrum, you'll have your own journey of acceptance. So take your time, don't rush it. And then I would also say act as though autism is your superpower. Because if you act like it's your superpower, people are going to notice that and they're going to be inspired by that. And even if you don't really believe it, the term fake it till you make it works really well. And it's true in this situation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you, like, even if you're not, if you act confident, if you act like you know what you're doing, if you act like this condition is a blessing, that's going to rub off on people, that's going to inspire people, and that's going to end a lot of the not so nice thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It is because the expression that you give yourself, like the outward expression of how you feel about yourself, that's going to rub off onto others
Mm-hmm.
inevitably. So once people see that you are comfortable with this, and that really they don't have a reason to bully and all that, because the thing about bullies, they pick on things that people are insecure about. So if you tell yourself that I am not insecure about this, I'm confident, those walls with bullies are just going to crumble.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then finally, I would just say, you know, this is the this is the hand of cards that you were dealt with. These are the positives, these are the negatives, and this is what you're dealing with. So how are you going to go about that? And I really hope they go about that in a positive way.
Awesome. Well, you hear that, folks, from Alex, teacher, autism acceptance advocate, and all around awesome human being.
Thank you. Good job,
I try my best. With that said, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. Whether you're viewing or listening to the podcast, thank you for listening, and hopefully you gain a lot of value. And so, if you like and subscribe to the podcast, please do so below if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, definitely give it a listen, especially on a nice long car ride home, back home to work, doing homework,
Yep.
whatever, definitely. And then also, definitely check out Alex's YouTube channel. What's the name of the YouTube channel again?
It's Alex's Autism Acceptance channel.
Awesome. So again, if you're viewing this, I'll make sure to post this into the YouTube description below with a link to his YouTube channel and Instagram. YouTube is for informative. Instagram, positive, feel good vibes, because everyone needs feel good vibes, especially right now. So with that said, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.